Straight to our top story. Tensions are high at the Israel-Gaza border as thousands of Palestinians mark the first anniversary of the Great March of Return protests. Clashes have erupted in the frontier as Israeli troops fired tear gas across the border. Protesters have been seen throwing stones and grenades at the Israeli side. Israel has deployed tanks at the site.
Why is nothing integrated?
Is this still already protected?
Meanwhile, ambulances have been stationed at the Malaka camp in East Gaza City as protests turned violent. Earlier in the day, Palestine said that a man was shot dead by Israeli forces ahead of the demonstrations. The weekly protests erupted last year over the Israeli blockade of Gaza. Notably, the anniversary of the weekly protests, or the Great March of Return, coincides with Palestine marking Land Day. Land Day commemorates the 1976 protests against Israeli settlements in which 6 Palestinians were killed. And now we have with us Mayor Javad Anfar, Middle East analyst, joining us live from Tel Aviv. And we have Dr. Wael Awad, writer and political analyst and South Asia expert, joining us from New Delhi. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on WION World is One. Let me now begin with Mayor Javad Anfar, our Middle East analyst. Talk to us. This situation is a powder keg of a situation, and it remains on the edge, and it will continue to remain on the edge until the end of the day at least.
Yes, let's hope that the number of casualties remain low. The people of Gaza have every right to demonstrate, although I wish that the Hamas would allow them to demonstrate against its rule the same way as it does allow them to demonstrate against Israel. We saw recently that Gazans tried to demonstrate against Hamas rule and it suppressed them violently. But now it's busing people to come to the border with Israel. But in any case, it's their right to come. And I think it's very important that the number of casualties is kept low. And as long as the protesters don't shoot at Israeli soldiers and don't try to breach the border, the Israeli army has clear instructions not to shoot. So let's just hope that despite the unfortunate one loss of life, the numbers remain low and the demonstrations remain controlled.
Right, stay with us. Let me now take this across to Dr. Wael Awad. Dr. Awad, talk to us in terms of what the situation means. We've seen the tension escalate over the last couple of weeks, and then came the ceasefire with the Egyptian mediation, and then now today, which is the marking of 2 different anniversaries at the same time by Palestine.
Well, to speak about Gaza Strip, we have not to see Gaza in isolation of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, because if you look at Gaza's population, there are 2 million people in a very small scale of land, 362 square kilometers, out of which 1/4 of it is considered to be a neutral zone by the Israelis. So you can imagine the most congested, largest prison in the world is in Gaza, one. The second point of importance, that 70% of the Gaza populations actually are from the refugees from different parts of Palestine, where they have been fled those area 1948 and they settled in Gaza. So therefore, Gaza has been besieged by the Israelis from the sea, from the land, from the sky, for so many years after Hamas 2006 took over in the elections, and ever since we have seen up and down on firing and on them, and the killing has been so much of the Palestinian. In fact, there are figures of more than 600 children have been killed in this war. And you have also, today we have 5 deaths, according to the latest report I have in front of me. Most of the attack, most of the death cause was the shot of live ammunition on the neck and on the head. So live ammunitions, shrapnels are there, gas have been thrown at the people there. So the people have been frustrated for the last couple of years that they are unable to survive the siege of Gaza, because according to UN AIDS agency, you require the minimum of 900 convoys of essentials, food, every week in Gaza to make these people survive the siege. So imagine people living under siege with no water to drink. You have 93% of the water in Gaza is not good for drinking because it is very salted and dirty water, and you don't have the essentials. Hospitals are unable to meet the requirements. So it is a very difficult life for a Palestinian under occupation to survive all this onslaught. So I think the situation is being now more focused on internationally because the suffering beyond imagination for the Palestinian people.
Right. Stay with us. Let me just take the cross to Mayor Javed Anfar. Mayor Javed Anfar, Israel accuses Hamas, particularly, and Palestine as a whole, of putting the civilians at the border and making them face these bullets.
Look, it's first of all, I think my respected colleague in India has a very wants the Gaza siege. I want Gaza to have a...
Right. We seem to be having a bit of a connectivity issue with Mayor Javed Anfar. Mayor Javed Anfar, we'll just reconnect with you. But meanwhile, let me now take this across to Dr. Wael Awad. Dr. Wael Awad, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made it clear that it is Hamas which is responsible for the loss of Palestinian lives, because it is Hamas which is mobilizing regular Palestinian people, and particularly children, and putting them at the frontier at the risk of their lives.
Absolutely untrue, because if you can see the whole of Palestinian, you have 1 million people in the street in Palestine right now at the border with the Gaza, with the rest of Israel, and they are fighting for their survival. Look, if we have just to go by what the current president, the prime minister speaks, then we are going into a mass deception. If we look at this map of the world, look at the Palestinian map. If you see the green map of this, prior to 1947, actually this map was to be considered Palestine. In 1947 division in the UN, it has given 51%, the white portion, to the Israelis, and the green remain with the Palestinian. And gradually, Israel has been scrapping this land, annihilating the population. This is the current map of current Israel, where only these patches of Palestinians, cantons, have been left, and that is where Gaza is. So therefore, to speak that it is because of Hamas, Hamas is just a resistance forces there, though I'm not fan of Hamas, but Palestinians as such are against occupation. So we have to understand the sentiment of the people.
Right.
If you imagine that children are dying because of they're unable to get their in the essential supply, we do not blame it on on Hamas itself.
Dr.
The whole
Wael
issue
Awad,
of
stay with us.
Palestine-Israel has to be seen from the UN Security Council resolution.
Right. Stay with us, Dr. Wael Awad. We will get your views. Meanwhile, Mayor Javed Anfar from Tel Aviv wants to interject and make his point. Mayor Javed Anfar, go ahead.
I think, first of all, as an Israeli, I'd like to live in peace with Palestinians. I believe fully in two states for two people. I think we've made mistakes, many mistakes, and the Palestinian leadership has also made many mistakes. But I think Dr. Awal is telling some simple untruths here by not telling the facts. The picture he presents is that from 51 until now, Israel has done all wrong, Palestine has done no wrong. That's incorrect. That's completely incorrect. On numerous occasions, we have tried to make peace with the Palestinians during Prime Minister Rabin, and we saw more Israelis were killed. Why was in 1967? Why did the war happen? Because there was four Arab countries who were trying to invade the state of Israel. Now, Hamas is responsible for putting children's lives on the line. Please, Dr. Awal, please answer me. Why was it that when 5 days ago, and before that, during the last 2 weeks, when Palestinians have protested against Hamas on the streets of Gaza, Hamas has violently using force, put them down. But when Palestinians want to demonstrate against Israel occupation, and they should, why is Hamas encouraging them? Because major part of this problem is Hamas organization. If an organization comes in the middle of New Delhi and kills people on buses, and then says Hindus are pigs and apes, just as Hamas has said Jews are pigs and apes, and it teaches hate to the children, this is a terrorist organization. It is not a freedom fighter. Such an organization carrying out the same atrocities in India would not be called, and for good reason, a resistance force. This is a terrorist force. The lives of Palestinians is dispensable to it, right. And it's Hamas that shares part of the responsibility. Israel also shares part of the responsibility for Gaza, and so does Egypt. The Egyptians have major problem with the Hamas terrorist organization, which is why the Egyptians are doing their best to block off all the tunnels that Hamas has used to smuggle weapons.
Dr. Wael Awad, Mir Javed Anfar is making a point over here, and you yourself just said that you're not a fan of Hamas, but isn't Hamas proving to be the single biggest blockage to peace on the Gaza Strip?
Absolutely not. What the Israeli want from Hamas is actually to recognize Israel's existence, to stop the resistance against occupation by military means, and also that the Hamas should declare Israel as a state of Israel in the rest of Palestine. I'm surprised that people really still believe in the current mass deception of the public. I have figure from the United Nations, I have figure from the international community, I have figure which shows the demographic changes of the Palestinian territories throughout the history, from 1.7% of Jewish to 75-80% Jewish at the cost of Palestinian. And I cannot argue here at the point that it is because of Hamas that we should justify occupation and expansion of the Israeli and the Palestinian territories. Hamas may have its main misdeed within the Palestinian territories. That is okay, but imagine when you don't have a supply for anything in the country and you are just putting them in a small corner in the world. For God's sake, this is something that the humanitarian crisis, even the UN recognized it as a catastrophe of the 21st century. And here we are debating whether it was carried out by Hamas or non-Hamas. The question really here is, end occupation, live in peace, because the Jewish and the Muslim are from the same father.
Right. Mir Javed Anfar, that exactly is the question over here, because this entire situation has been brought about because of occupation, and fingers will be pointed at Israel for not just the beginning of the occupation, but the expansion of the occupation over a period of time.
I'm against the settlement occupation, the settlement expansions, 100%. I think settlement expansion is an obstacle to peace. But to portray Hamas as an organization that is not part of the problem is being disingenuous here. If an organization who was killing Hindu citizens in India and was calling them apes and pigs and was calling for the entire elimination of the state of India from Hindu citizens, that organization would be a racist terrorist organization. The same applies to Hamas. Yes, Palestinians have the right to resist. Yes, they have a right to be angry. They were also, my friends in India perhaps don't know, as part of the Israel-Palestine War of 1948, there were 700,000 Palestinians who were made homeless as part of that war. Half of them approximately escaped, and half of them were removed. They were forced out. And then the Arab world pushed out 1 million Jews. We have from countries of Iraq, we have from Morocco, we have from Egypt. And Israel has done an amazing job of absorbing them. And it seems that Dr. Awad is upset that those Jews came here to be in a country, to be in a state which is recognized by the United States, by the United Nations. I live in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is recognized by the United Nations. Hamas doesn't recognize it. Hamas wants all of this region, and also Hamas is an extremely corrupt organization. So as long as Hamas is in power and wants to continue, there will be no peace. And I also condemn settlement expansions.
Right, Mir Javed Anfar, your point is taken. I'm going to have a last quick word in from Dr. Wael Awad. Dr. Wael Awad, at the end of the day, what is important right now is peace. What is important right now, we limit the loss of lives and stop it altogether, and that cannot be brought about through violence or through militancy.
End occupation, end settlement, apply the United Nations Security Council Resolution 334, 242 and 338, and the right of return for the Palestinian. Everybody can live in peace and coexistence. That was the principle of Madrid Conference. Israeli knows, Rabin knows, the former late president who was killed by right-wing Jewish. And it is understood that the only way for peace is the land for peace, and let us live together. That's the only solution. End the suffering of the Palestinian. That's the answer to it.
And end of terrorism, end of racist terrorism, end of anti-Semitic terrorism from Hamas.
All right. Dr. Wailawad and Mir Javed Anfar.
No, we are all Semite. We are all Semite. The Arabs and the Jewish are Semite. We are from the same father. You've been to Ishaq. We have gone to Ismail. We are all supposed to be living in happy life. There is no question of anti-Semite at any cost when it comes to the right of existence for the people.
Right.
This is a Palestine land with people, not
Hamas
land
does
without
not
people.
want this part of the world to have Jews. Hamas is a racist, anti-Semitic organization. You are not, sir, but Hamas is. And all Israeli governments, left or right, if a leftist government is elected in Israel next time, as much as we'll try to hopefully improve the economic lives of Palestinians, Gaza will be ruled by an anti-Semitic, corrupt organization.
Dr. Wael Awad and Mir Javed Anfar, unfortunately, we're completely run out of time here, but let's all hope and pray that peace returns sooner than later. But for now, thank you so much for being with us here on WION.